Hey there friends and enemies, JoPa here again, and today I want to check out the latest video from IGN on The Outer Worlds 2 as they have some exclusives they've been dropping, and this one is on RPG character building, which is one of my most important factors with The Outer Worlds 2, and I feel like it is something that maybe was lacking just a little bit with the original game, and I feel like could be expanded upon quite a bit. And if they do that, I think this game will be significantly improved in some of the levels of builds that you can make. And that was, again, one of my criticisms of the last one. I thought the RPG element with the story selection and your player choice was very good, but if they can improve the build crafting, I think that would go a long way.
As part of our IGN First series on The Outer Worlds 2, we talked with design director Matt Singh and lead systems designer Kyle Koenig from Obsidian about how the team expanded the ways in which you can build your character.
This is
Instead
huge.
of the streamlined systems of the first game, The Outer Worlds 2 gives players more room to customize their build for specific playstyles and spec into the game's unique aspects with reworked stats, perks, and traits.
I love that.
The
That's
system
huge.
has been overhauled too, which we'll dive into with another video. But first, let's get into how this sequel is embracing its RPG roots.
Game looks really good, in my opinion, as well, from what we've seen so far.
We really kind of focused down on making each individual level up and investment really important. We have
I love
combined
that.
a lot of the skills.
I hate
but
useless
each one
stats
has
and
a much
useless
more
upgrades.
Significant impact per point, and we've significantly increased the number of perks we have with over 90 of them. Each of those perks
That's pretty sick. Yeah,
require
that's
various
great.
skills to unlock. So as you invest in skills, it changes how you can invest in perks.
Ah.
It leads you down many different paths for how you can build your character.
I do feel like the original didn't allow for enough flexibility, so that way you can just pump and dump a bunch of stats and skills and just kind of lean into something and make it kind of wildly OP without really having to put a lot of thought into it. And that's something that, again, I hope they improve on.
We wanted to lean into kind of player synergies. So looking at how player traits, player skills, and perks can all infuse into interesting builds that play off of other systems.
I love that. That's going to be huge.
There's more than just traditional kind of my stealth focused build or my combat
Melee
focused build or my speech focused build. There's really a lot of blending of concepts, playing with other systems and incorporating those into a pretty broad, unique kind of range of different player profiles that you could take. We have some kind of archetypes that we key into to make sure that they're well supported.
Okay.
But we're not prescriptive in the way that we want you to experiment, play with, mix and match stuff, and really experiment, make something unique for you.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what I want in an RPG the most. But it feels like sometimes you don't always get that, to be honest.
When we moved away from the skill categories and went into deeper, just individual skills with more differences between them, the goal was to make it so players, when they're building these characters, they can really look at the difference between each skill and what the gameplay changes for them are. And by having them different, there's less confusion on when I should invest in one skill or the other. It's much more clearly, oh, I want to be the player that's all about guns and using medical devices. I know which skills I really need to care about. By having them
that makes
separated
sense.
and not having individual groupings of them, it lets characters be more specialized. We still support jack of all trade characters, of course, but lets characters more easily specialize and have their playthrough be very much more catered towards that character.
One thing that we're really going
That's something that I really love, and something that, again, I'm glad they're really acknowledging this and understanding that this is an improvement to be made. Because as much as I enjoyed The Outer Worlds 1, I did feel like there was some build crafting that left some to be desired. And again, I've mentioned this a couple times, but it is very refreshing that the developers also kind of came to the same conclusion as I did.
for is having very clear distinctions between what do different skills
The guns
do
look pretty
for your
sick, by the
build,
way.
giving them a clear space to shine.
That's huge.
And then being able to integrate them in the game in a lot of different ways. Not only just the specific bonuses that you get from investing in the skill, but the things that it unlocks for perks, the things that it unlocks within conversations. We even have stuff like observation skill hey, that actually unlocks new things in the world because you are a very observant
that's
player.
pretty sick.
You're actually going to pick up on things in the environment that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah, I
Oh,
like
you're
that.
high in observation. This secret door that other people may never even find is now gonna be something that's highlighted for you, and you can interact with, and now you found a new path because you are a more observant player. And so we treat our
That's gonna be
we
huge.
have condensed the skills, clarified the gameplay spaces for them, so that we can key into those major differences between them.
I feel like that's gonna push me into multiple playthroughs in a way that, yeah, I
We have a
did
ton of different
evil
perks.
and
The way
good
we
last
looked at
time,
them
but
was
now I
designing
have
them
a lot
to
more
look at, like,
variety.
what are all the different modes of gameplay the player has? What are all the actions they can take, and how can we modify them? So we have tons of different examples. Like a fun one is run and gun. So if you're a player that really wants to run around with
Yo, that gun looks
shotguns,
sick.
SMGs and rifles, you can have fire while sprinting or sliding, and that really opens up a whole new world for those weapons. As you don't need to be as stationary behind cover to use them. We have
That's
other perks
very
that
cool.
key into things like speech, where we use them in conversations, like Space Ranger, which lets you kind of live the space commander fantasy, where we interact with that in conversations all the time and let you kind of live that character. But it also grants you damage based off of your speech skill, letting skills progress in ways that are different than if you didn't take those perks.
That's
We have a lot
very
of perks that
nice.
are kind of catered towards non-traditional play styles as well. We have a line for like psychopath players, right? We see people that want to go and just kill people in town and whatnot, and you're like, whoa, okay, if you want to do that, you can. But similarly with our perk system, hey, you want to do that? Lean into it.
That's
Take
awesome.
This perk psychopath, you'll get bonuses for it. Lean into it even further, you can take a serial killer perk that keys off of that and get some major bonuses.
Oh, I'm definitely doing that.
Again,
That
we're
sounds
looking
sick.
for ways to incentivize the player to experiment with different builds. either
Yeah,
traditional or
I'm locked
non-traditional.
in.
Exsanguination is an art. Where's the precision, the pride in their work? This is just embarrassing.
And I think it's fun to play with some of the builds where you're opting into things that may sound detrimental to like make your build more interesting. So like we've got some stuff for essentially like taking damage but then converting that into energy that can then be spent, right? And that can actually be really fun to play with, where you're like, okay, well then how do I construct a build where I'm actually incentivized to get in there and take damage,
Yeah.
so that I can then do other things effectively. And I really like those kinds of creative builds that allow you to play with that and
Those should be the
convert something that might be negative into a positive aspect of
most
it.
powerful
So in
builds, the
character
give and
creation,
take.
There's also two additional things you select: your background, which doesn't have any RPG stats associated with them. They're
Just-
purely role playing. We
Okay,
use them
cool.
all the time in conversations as a way to further
That makes sense.
differentiate your characters from others.
A
And then
roused
we also have
about.
traits, where we have positive and negative traits. So one of the things in Outer Worlds 1 that was kind of a key off of Fallout was you could have negative attributes, and that would be actively detrimental to your character, but hey, you get a few extra points to spend somewhere else. We have traits now where you have positive and negative traits, and you can select
Dumb.
the positive trait, which grants you things
Sickly,
like
that's
you get
funny.
to tag an extra skill in conversations. If you're or in character creation because you're brilliant. Or you're brawny, you can run into someone and knock them down. And then you can select a negative trait to select a second positive.
That's so
trait. And the
funny.
negative traits can be crazy things like your character is dumb, which of course has lots of conversation uses, but it locks off 5 skills that you can never put points into.
Yeah,
So
this
early on,
sounds
those
way
skills are not on
better.
the table for me. My character is going to be really into these 2 things only.
Don't worry. I'll just be here in my deepening puddle of blood.
One of the things that I think a lot of us on the team love about RPGs is the evolved story of your character as you play. It being the story of your character, not the story of the world as much. By limiting respec, we let you do it at the start of the game just as a way to, you tried a few things maybe you want to change after the beginning area. By removing respect, we really incentivize that experience to be your experience. If you're going through the game and you decide, hey, I really like using gadgets, maybe I should start investing in that. Those skill points are a part of your story. It's a part of your experience that no one else had. And I think that's really special about RPGs. And
I'm on the fence about this because if you start making a build or start putting something together and it's not working or not fun for you, having to fully restart is kind of a bummer. So that's the only downside to that. I like when you can do multiple things. However, if you're talking about immersion and just making the character your own, I do understand it. So I kind of get that to a degree.
Something that respec tends to lessen.
That's fair. Not sure I'm sold on it, but I do like it.
Philosophy-wise, we really feel all of your choices should matter. They should be meaningful changes to
That's
your gameplay experience.
absolutely fair.
This is just one of those ways where we're asking you to lean in, make a choice, stick to it, and see how that plays out in interesting and fun ways. Yes, you can experiment, you can play with it, but and you may find something that I try this out, I don't really like it too much. You know, you might want to load a save. You might want to do something a little different. You might want to try a different playthrough. But we really want those choices to feel meaningful, feel impactful to that player
Interesting.
story.
So that's the end of the video pretty much. But yeah, so that last part's the only thing I'm on the fence about. I do like limited respecs, but having like one or two where you can revert some things, I think might not be necessarily a bad thing. However, I do understand feeling the weight of decisions, and I know this is the type of game that I'll play through multiple times. I'll do a good playthrough, I'll do a bad playthrough, I'll do maybe a more melee focused playthrough, but then I'll do maybe an assassin type or stealth character. So we'll see. I know I'm going to be getting my time with the game, so knowing that there's no respecs ahead of time is nice though, because now I can go in eyes wide open and understand that, okay, every choice I make, I do have to make the right decision in order to make the build that I ultimately want to. I do worry this will lead to more people watching videos on which kind of abilities or which things to take and which will be best for them, which could be a little bit of a bummer. But overall, very good stuff. I do like this. I feel like ultimately the deeper, more meaningful choices for your RPG build crafting is very nice to see. I'm glad they took what they learned from the previous game and expanded upon it and even improved it in many ways from the sounds of it and what the developers are saying. And ultimately, I'm really excited about this game. It's supposed to still launch in 2025, which is kind of wild, and I cannot wait. I'm hopeful that we get a release date sooner rather than later. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like the video as always, comment, subscribe. Have a good one. I'll catch you all later.